Good evening and welcome to Bible Baptist Church. If you would, find your seat and then stand with me where you're at. We'll start our evening service with our best. We'll sing all three verses before we open and receive our offering. On the first now here. Hear ye the Master's call, give me thy best, for be it great or small, that is his test. Do then the best you can, not for reward, not for the praise of man, but for the Jesus will be blessed, but he asks from everyone his best. Our talents may be few, these may be small, but unto him is due our best, our all. Wait not for men to laud, heed not their slight. Winning the smile of God brings its delight. Aiding the good and true ne'er goes unblessed. All that we think or do, be it the best. Every work for Jesus will be blessed, but he asks from everyone his best. Our talents may be few, these may be small, but unto him is due our best, our all. On the last here. Night soon comes on apace, day hastens by. Workman and work must face testing on high. Oh, may we in that day find rest, sweet rest, which God has promised those who do their best. Every work for Jesus will be blessed, but he asks from everyone his best. Our talents may be few, these may be small, but unto him is due our best, our all. Good start to this evening service. Brother Gary Barnett, would you mind opening us in a word of prayer, please?
Lord, we thank you for the time we have together, Lord. We bless the preaching tonight. Lord, bless those that are sick and in the hospital, or here at church that have ailments that continue to pray. Lord, we thank you for loving us the way you love us. We love you the same, Lord, and we ask, give us that strength. Bless this offering now for use for your purposes, Lord.
Thank you, Miss Monica. Sure appreciate that. And it is good to see you this evening in the Lord's house. I trust you've had a profitable week thus far and that it's gone well. And so looking forward to the sermon tonight. We're getting into a kind of a section of the book that's where we start talking about the judgment of Babylon, and I believe that'll be beneficial, and so I'm looking forward to that here this evening. And so let me go over a few announcements here real quick, and then we'll jump right into the sermon here this evening. Men's breakfast is this Saturday at 8 a.m. I encourage you men to come participate in that. It's always a great time of encouraging other brothers in Christ and having a little time of prayer and devotion, and of course always a great breakfast. And so looking forward to that this Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. in the fellowship hall. And of course all our men are very welcome to come to that. We'd love to have you. Youth camp, it's crazy to think we've been talking about it for a while, but it is here. We leave out on Monday morning and heading to Ringgold, Louisiana. I got a good group. I believe there's 26 total, including sponsors and kids and youth and everybody heading out that way, and trusting that God will bless it very, very richly. We've got there's a couple speakers this year at the camp, and I'm just excited. I believe God's going to do a great work. And so if you could be in prayer in a couple ways. One, that God would give us safety. Never want to take it for granted. There's a lot of miles that get put on the road in those 15-passenger vans, and we just rejoice and thank the Lord that there's never been an incident, and we just pray that that continues. And so pray for safety. The second thing is just pray that God would do a work. Youth camp has a big part of my life because a lot of decisions that I made, honestly, my call into ministry, that's where I met my wife. A lot of major decisions were made in my life at youth camp, and I'm not expecting that of our youth per se, but I also don't want to discount that God can do those things. And so we're praying that God would allow their hearts to be sensitive to the preaching. And so if you'll pray in that direction, we want God to do a great work at camp. Okay. On that note, also kind of in those dates, I wanted to give you an update on our missionary also, Brother Story. If you didn't get their prayer cards, they're kind of like first editions. So they're hot off the press. Nobody else has got them. So we gave them at our church first as the sending church. And so that's a blessing. So there's some at the couple stations. If you hadn't got one of those, start praying for them. They made it back from their survey trip in Italy. All went well. They were able to take the pictures and videos they needed to, figure out about cost of living and housing, and meet with some missionaries over there, and some of the logistic things about language school. And so it's a very profitable trip for them. And so they're back. They're up in Illinois right now with Miss Chrissy's family, just spending some time there. And the plan is they're going to come back down through Oklahoma mid part of next week and pick up their the RV. It's supposed to be getting some work done on it with that AC unit that's been giving them some fits. And then they'll be moving down here probably Friday of next week. So we'll be at camp, and they'll be getting here. But we're excited to have them. So by a week from Sunday, they should be here at the church in the services. And I want us to be a blessing to them. I know they'll be a blessing to us. And really the reason we did this, to have these summer months with them here, is it's going to be a lot more meaningful for us in our prayers as we're praying for them over in Italy if we know them on a real deep personal level. And so I'm excited for you all to get to rub elbows with them and get to know them. And so I encourage you, get to know all 6 of their kids. They're fantastic kiddos. And of course, David and Chrissy, they're just great people. They love the Lord. They love serving in the ministry. And I'm excited they're going to be here. And then, of course, the plan is in September they'll start in full-time deputation, where they'll start traveling to other churches and things. But I just want to give you an update on where they're at. Their survey trip did go well, and they're planning on being down here next week while we're at camp. They'll be moving down, so if you see them set up out there, let's try to give them some privacy, but also be excited they're here, right? Yay, that's a good thing. Okay, Father's Day Fish Fry. Looking forward to this. The guys have been fishing and catching fish, and they've got the fish we need, and they're ready to go, and so we're excited about that. I really appreciate the guys who have put forth the effort sacrificially to catch those fish. And so I think they were over at Brother Andy's this morning getting the farm-raised catfish he's got over there at his place. He's got a stock tank. They were catching them out of there. And so anyways, that's going to be great. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be on Sunday night, June 15th. And so just a week from Sunday. And so that'll be a great time that evening. I hope you'll plan on staying that night for the Father's Day fish fry after the service. Okay, Capernaum Studios, if you're planning on going to that, that's June 27th. Of course, if you have any questions, be sure and visit with the Noises, and they'll be sure and get you any information you need about that if you're signed up for that activity. Okay, Youth Water Wars activity they're having on Tuesday, July 1st. They did that last year and had a lot of fun with it, so we're looking forward to that again this year. Okay, and then our VBS is July 21st to the 25th. I hope you're making plans on being here if you're able to. It's one of those all hands on deck type events at the church. We can never have enough workers, and there's a job for you to do. Even if you're just doing something very, very simple, if you have to sit the whole time and just visit with a kid and work on a craft or something, we can use you at Vacation Bible School. And I'll already be praying that God will do something great this year at Bible School. He always does, and we have been having people call and email and all kinds of stuff, message on Facebook, since about March asking about this year's VBS. And so excited about that, though. We've got a testimony about loving people and ministering to people. And so pray that God would allow us to see some folks get saved, and that we'd have the opportunity to reach some families with the gospel and get some people in church. Amen. That would be a blessing. And so in light of that, tomorrow night at 6 p.m., we are going to have a meeting. This is not a mandatory meeting. It's just a brainstorming time for us. This is an opportunity for us to think what would be cool to do for decorations, what would look good, what's some cool ideas for skits and for puppets and for crafts and for the lessons and game time and even some of the logistic stuffs of registration and check-in and you name it. It's just an opportunity for us to visit about that. And so if you haven't signed up, all the little slots are full on that, but if you're planning on coming, just write your name off to the side. That way we kind of know a rough number of who all's coming. We are going to feed you, so plan on that happening from about 6 to 8. We'll plan on about 2 hours or so to have those discussions, and we'll do that in the fellowship hall. So hopefully you can be here and be a part of that. I also did want to mention, with us being gone to camp next week, we're not leaving the pulpit vacant, and I prayed about who God would have us have me kind of fill our pulpit. And I enjoy you guys hearing from other men in our church. I always appreciate when Brother Ken and others step up and fill the pulpit. It really is a blessing. And so one of our newer members who really filled the pulpit quite a bit at his former church through all the health issues of the pastor there, and Brother Renee Lira. And so I've asked him to preach next Wednesday night, to which he reluctantly agreed. And so I've told him I'll be praying for him, but excited for you all to hear him. He's got a sweet spirit, and I believe he'll be a blessing to us next Wednesday night. Look forward to hearing good things about it. And if they're not good, don't tell me about it. Amen. No, I'm just kidding. It's going to be great. Looking forward to it. All right, well, let's take our Bibles here tonight, and we're going to go to the book of Habakkuk and chapter number 2. Habakkuk and chapter number 2. Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse number 5 is where we're going to start reading. If you found your place and you're able to, let's stand together as we honor the reading of God's Word. Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse number 5. And really this is all one big section from verse 5 down through verse 20. And if we call it this, it would be the woes against Babylon by Habakkuk. That would probably be what I would give as a definition of this passage here, but we're going to break it up into 5 groups, 5 sermons, because there are 5 different woes that are pronounced against Babylon. So we're going to take each one of those and give it proper attention. So let's start reading there in verse number 5, Habakkuk chapter 2. It says this, Yea also, because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, here's the woe, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. Now, we don't use that phraseology very often. It's just talking about that he's taking people's stuff and he's massing it like he's stacking clay up. He's just getting all this stuff. Verse 7, Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee? And thou shalt be for booties unto them, because thou hast spoiled many nations. All the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land and the city, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. So I'd like to preach to you tonight about this, the first woe, which is this, aggression and theft. And we kind of combine those together in one word we might use this way, extortion. Extortion. So may God bless the reading of His Word. You can be seated. And thank you for standing in honor of the Scriptures here this evening. Extortion's become a real problem in our tech world that we live in today. I won't by show of hands, but I'm sure there'll probably be a good number of people even here tonight who have been scammed or taken advantage of, or someone stolen a piece of your identity, probably at some point. I think almost everyone at this time has probably experienced that to some degree. Maybe your Facebook account got hacked, or someone got your credit card information and bought things fraudulently, or found information and took it and did stuff with it. Man, people do all kinds of very nefarious and wicked things with technology. And for me, I'll say this, I love technology, but that's probably one of the most frustrating parts of it. It really is that there are evil agents and actors out there who would extort or take advantage of people and use your identity or use your information for their own benefit and for their own gain. Probably one of the evilest things that I've seen, I haven't heard of a lot of people this has happened to, but I know it happens, is that hackers gain access into people's personal device or information, and they gain information that is damaging to the person, and then they extort the person. If you don't do this, I'm going to release this out to the public, and you're going to be found out for XYZ reason. Or whatever the case might be. We say this, they blackmail them. They use this information to get money or to gain favor from them. Now, maybe you think, well, I've never experienced that. I don't know what you're talking about with the hacking aspect in the tech world. But this is not a new thing to human nature. Actually, if you go back before the advent of a computer and the internet, you would find that extortion happened way back when also. That there would be those who would seize somebody's property or seize a loved one or seize information about somebody, and then they would use that to extort somebody. You either pay me X amount of money or your loved one, you'll never see them again. You either pay me X amount of money or I'm going to release this information about you. You either give me X amount of money or you're not going to get this precious item back. When I was at Heartland Baptist Bible College, a place known for extortion. I'm just kidding. My wife, or at the time, my fiance, had given me a stuffed elephant. There's a story behind that. Won't get into that tonight. And I had this little stuffed animal, and it sat on my bed, a very masculine thing to do as a senior in Bible college. I showed up one day and opened the door to my locked dorm room. As the RA, I was in charge of the floor, and I found hanging where that elephant usually was a note that says, "Do you ever want to see it again?" And it had a picture of this elephant like in a death grip. "You ever want to see it again, you'll meet us here at this time." It's this extortion note. And of course, guys in the dorm are always doing ridiculous stuff like that. Needless to say, I had to jump through some hoops to get the elephant back. But I'll say this: if you ever experienced extortion before, that's basically what it is. Somebody who is going to seize something from you, and they're going to do it in an aggressive way and say, "I don't care what happens to you. I want what I want, and I'm going to trample over you to get it." Now, unfortunately, this all goes, if we dig a little bit deeper, it goes to the human condition of really this greed that people have, where they have this desire for stuff, this insatiable desire for more, that they say, "I don't care what it costs you, I'm going to get what I want." And that desire that's in the heart of man, if left unchecked, it rages on, and we probably have one of the most brilliant examples of it right here in the nation of Babylon. They didn't have anybody that could rival them militarily speaking. They could roll over whoever they wanted to, and so they'd roll up on nations and say, "Submit or else." And when they didn't, they would just steamroll over them, take all of their substance to themselves, take away their people as prisoners. Think about Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, how they were taken from Judah. I mean, they would do that nation after nation after nation. They were the chief extortioners. That is really a big part of their MO of how they operated and how they would trample over these nations. And so here Habakkuk is told by God that this is one of the points by which God has chosen to judge Babylon because of this wickedness. Now, hopefully it's evident just by explaining what extortion is. But we'll just go ahead and say it here. It's a sinful behavior. And because of that, God is going to judge Babylon for their aggression, their theft, their extortion that they had. Now, just by way of a little bit of a flow of the book, we can do this really quickly. If you'll remember, in the first sermon we talked about that there was a question. Habakkuk asked this: why is God allowing bad things to happen and no judgment? It's like these people are doing stuff and nothing bad happens to them. Now, surprisingly, God answers this question of Habakkuk. And so God's response to Habakkuk, and thus to Judah at large, was that he was going to judge the wicked people in Judah by using a wicked agent called Babylon. And that's going to accomplish his divine purpose. Now, sometimes we struggle with that answer, where God chooses to use a wicked agent to accomplish a divine purpose. But that's what God chose to do here. So Habakkuk's second question in chapter 2 is this: how can a holy God use something so unholy to bring about judgment on his people? So he talks about 6 characteristics of God, about how God is holy and God's just and God's perfect and God's immutable. And he talks about all these characteristics about who God is. And he says, how can that God use someone as wicked as Babylon to accomplish his purposes? Maybe you've asked those questions in your life before. How can a just God allow something so unjust to happen? Well, we have to ultimately boil it down to this: his ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts are above ours. And we don't really see the full scope of God's image and picture about what he's trying to accomplish. But we need to know this: God does not approve of sinful men and sinful behavior, but he can allow it in order to accomplish his divine purposes. Think Joseph's brothers, who sold him into slavery, a very sinful and evil thing to do, and yet even Joseph recognized what God was doing when he grew up and became second in command. He says, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. God did not do the evil, but he allowed it to accomplish his purposes. The same is true here with Judah. So God then is going to pronounce what we're going to call woes. Now, we're not talking about a horse. Whoa, okay. Let me explain what the word means here in just a moment. But he's going to pronounce 5 of them on Babylon. But first, the sermon we talked about last week in chapter 2 is he wanted them to understand that this prophecy has some specifics to it. One, it needs to be given very clearly, like a billboard with somebody running by, they can read it easily. Number 2, this prophecy will come true. Hindsight's 20/20. But in this particular instance, and in other things in the Scripture, we as believers have foresight that's 20/20. Not in all things, but in some things. We are assured He is returning. We are assured there is a heaven. We are assured when we die, if we are saved, we will go to heaven. That's foresight, that's 20/20, just like hindsight's 20/20. So we would say it this way: Habakkuk's prophecy is not speculative, it is absolute. It will take place. So there's only 2 responses. Pride, verse 4 says they could react in pride. What's that? Ultimately self. Self-serving, self-appetizing, self-aggrandizing. This would be all about me, 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 me. And they would do this. They would reject the message of God. The other thing is that the just could live by his faith, which is ultimately this: if we believe God, then we'll act upon that belief, which means there will be just behavior. So that's called faith. And that's how the Christian life has ultimately been since the beginning. It's never been about works. It's always been about faith. And so if you believe the prophecy, you will act upon that. Now God's going to give a series of 5 woes against this wicked agent called Babylon. Now these pronouncements against the sins of Babylon and the subsequent judgments. So pretty much every one of them is going to say this is what they're doing wrong and this is what's going to happen because of what they've done wrong. That's what the woes are. This is what they're doing sinful. This is what I'm going to do because of that sinful behavior. These should serve as a warning for those who would want to commit the same crimes against God, but they also should serve as a comfort to those who have been abused by such sin. So that really is the purpose of why this is given to Habakkuk here. Now, he uses the word 5 times here in chapter 2. Our first one here is the only one where it's in the middle of the text. So if you look down, the next one's down in verse number 9, where it says, "Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness." You go down to verse 12, "Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood." Verse 15, "Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink." You go down to verse number 19, "Woe unto him that saith to the wood, awake." Okay, these are the divisions, the text divisions of this different woes. So the first one you have here is kind of in the middle of our text there in verse number 6. So it brought up a question in my mind because we don't typically use the phrase woe very often. That is, unless you ride horses, but that's a different use of the word, okay? This may be one of those words, like the word of the week, where you're going to go and you're going to be with your kids and you're going to go, whoa! You're just going to use it. It's just, hopefully you can get a hold of it that well we know it, okay? I think most people know what it means when they hear it, but maybe they have a hard time, because honestly I said, I know what it means, but I have a hard time explaining what it means, which is really hard when you're a preacher because you got to get up and explain what it means. Which means this, I didn't know really well what it meant. Although I kind of had an understanding of it, I wanted to understand it better. So it literally means, alas, oh. It's like an exclamation. You're making a statement of, whoa, oh, alas. You're calling attention to something. So it's a strong expression, and it can do several things. It can be a strong expression of lament. Woe is me, for I'm a man of unclean lips. Okay? It's an expression of lament, of sinfulness, of saying, I am sad. Okay? It could be this, somebody who's making an expression of warning. Whoa, don't do that, don't go there. You're making an exclamation, don't go there, there's danger. But in our text here, it's neither of those. This woe is a cry of judgment. It's a pronouncing that there is judgment coming. Woe unto you. Jesus would do this to the Pharisees in the New Testament. Woe unto you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites. He would make a pronouncement, a declaration about judgment that was coming to them. Now, the strong expression would convey, in our particular text here, impending doom. It's an expression of judgment saying, whoa, there's something bad coming your way. Something terrible is going to happen. So in our text here, it's a strong expression of judgment conveying impending doom toward Babylon. Think about it this way. In our modern vernacular, we might say it this way. You're going to be in trouble. You're about to get in trouble. Or we could kind of paraphrase it even further if we want to just use one word like he uses woe here. Trouble. You're going to be in trouble. We could paraphrase it that far. Let me give a little bit of an example here. My sisters, I have 3 siblings. I have an older brother, an older sister, and a younger sister. I'm number 3. So if you're the third child's always the best, right? No, I'm just kidding. That's just how it was in my family. And I'm just kidding. So I was sandwiched between sisters, though. I had a younger sister. She's about 4.5 years younger than I am. And then my older sister, she's right at about 5 years older than I am. Okay, so the distance between my oldest sister and my youngest sister is somewhere around 9 years or so, the age difference. And they shared a room. So that was always interesting growing up with that dynamic. Now, my younger sister, Stephanie, there was a period of time when she was probably about 4 or so that she really got into my mom's makeup. Like, she loved it. If she could get a hold of something, it was all over her. And she just thought, I'm so gorgeous, I'm so beautiful, look how pretty I've made myself. So there were efforts made to prevent her from getting into the makeup, right? And so just this isn't how this happened, but I'm just going to kind of paint the picture of how something might have occurred. My older sister, Darcy, who's 9 years older than my younger sister, Stephanie, walks into the room, and there is Stephanie sitting on the floor, and she has gotten all of the makeup out. The tubes have been squeezed. The lipstick has been fully erected out of the tube. I mean, the powders have been smeared and powdered. The carpet is stained. The walls are covered. And head to toe, she is beautiful. It's been fully covered. Hundreds of dollars of makeup has been destroyed. As my older sister walks in to this young child who is beautiful, she might say something like this: "You're in trouble." That is a woe. My sister is not the one who's about to execute any discipline on her, and what she has said to her, "You're about to be in trouble," is not the judgment. It's not the punishment. It's just the exclamation that there's a punishment coming. Woe to you, child. Something bad's coming. Now, this is important because we need to understand when a pronouncement of woe is given, that's not the judgment. It's not like God showing up and saying through the prophet Habakkuk, I'm judging you. No. He's just saying God is going to judge you. He's given a pronouncement that there is going to be an execution of judgment still yet in the future. Now, that ought to do a few things in the heart of the person who's receiving the woe, like the 4-year-old kid who's covered in makeup. You know what I'm talking about? The kid's having a grand old time till someone walks in and then their face goes, they've been caught, they've been found out. And then they might start doing this, like start shoveling it all underneath their rear end, like they're hiding it, you know, trying to hide the evidence, even though it's everywhere, evident. And there's that feeling of fear that starts to settle into the heart. Why? Because I've been caught, and judgment is coming. You know, unfortunately, there are those who don't have that reaction when a woe is pronounced. Instead, defiantly, they bow up and they say, what are you going to do about it? That's a dangerous disposition of heart when the person who's about to do the judging is God. Now here, there's this woe that is being pronounced against Babylon, and this woe is about not just messing up some makeup, but it's about some very egregious sins that have been committed, not just against God's people, but ultimately as an affront to God Himself. And here, God gives the prophet Habakkuk, he says, I am pronouncing woe. There is impending doom and judgment that is coming, and I am going to execute it in my timing. And he did. Absolutely he did. And so in this first woe, as we kind of go through all these woes, he's basically describing in each of them, this is the transgression you got in the makeup, and then this is the judgment. You're about to get a spanking. Okay, so each one of these woes is going to follow kind of that dynamic about what was done wrong and then what judgment is going to be executed. Okay, so Babylon will have 5 woes, as I've already mentioned. I'll just give them to you real quickly. Okay, verse 5 through 8 is the woe against what we might call aggression and theft, or paraphrase it with extortion. Verses 9 through 11 is the woe against covetousness or greed. Verses 12 through 14 will be the woe against violence. Verses 15 through 17, a woe against corruption. And then finally, verse 18 through 20 is a woe against idolatry. And so each one of these is going to pronounce this judgment or impending judgment that's coming to them. So tonight we're just going to take a quick look at the first woe, this woe against aggression and theft. Now, let's start with this portion over here, which is what they did that was sinful and wrong, aggression and theft, extortion, and then we'll talk about the judgment that's going to happen. So this is mainly described in verses 5 and 6 of what they did wrong, and then verses 7 and 8 talk about what is going to happen because of that. Okay, so Babylon's transgressions are indicative in every one of these, particularly of their leader. Now, does anybody remember at this time the name of the leader of Babylon? Nebuchadnezzar, right? So here we have Nebuchadnezzar, and he is there, and he is the archetype, he is the picture of all of Babylon. So sometimes there is a language that's used like it's speaking of an individual when really he's addressing a whole nation, but really that's because Nebuchadnezzar is like the archetype of the whole nation. So in addressing the nation, he's ultimately addressing Nebuchadnezzar, and addressing Nebuchadnezzar, he's ultimately addressing the nation. So he mentions there in verse number 5, I'll go through these here real quickly, but he talks about that he transgresses by wine. This just basically means this: he's a drunkard. He's somebody who is not just drinking, he is transgressing in that drinking, which means he is a drunkard. Now, there could be some foreshadowing here. If you know the story of the fall of Babylon, you can read it in the book of Daniel. The night they fell to the Medes and the Persians, you know what they were doing? They were drinking. They were having a big drinking party with the vessels that had been taken out of the house of God in Jerusalem. And God came down and wrote with his finger on the wall, many, many tekel upharsin, which is to say you've been weighed and found wanting in the balance. And God was going to take the kingdom from the Babylonians and give it to the Medes and the Persians that night. And so there may be some foreshadowing here, but it also helps us understand this is indicative behavior of the Babylonians to suppress others and be drunk on their gain that they've gotten from other people. It's indicative of their culture, okay? He then talks about the fact that they're proud. Now, this has already been condemned in verse number 4, which obviously means this: when a pronouncement of woe is given, they're either by faith going to believe it, or in pride they're going to reject it. Well, I wonder what they're going to choose. Their behavior is laid out for us in verse number 5, that God already has said that they are a proud man. Nebuchadnezzar's full of pride. You want to read about how prideful he was? Go to Daniel chapter 4. Look at this kingdom that I built. Look at this wonderful empire that I've developed. And God took the heart of man out of him and put a heart of a beast in, and he lived like a wild animal, covered with the dew of heaven. His hair grew out wild and crazy like feathers, the Bible says. His nails grew out long like talons and claws, and he was like a wild man living out there, lost his mind. That's what God did to pride. But that just, again, shows indicative of the leader, so goes the nation. A promotion of self, arrogance. We don't need to listen to God. We have us. Okay. He then talks about this, maybe not as familiar of a term. He says that they neither keep at home. Now, to keep at home literally means this: to find rest in your abode. Think about it this way. We, just a little over a year ago, were able to purchase a home here about a year and a half ago, and we move in, and during that time, especially the first few months, we were making a house into a home. Even this week, Evie's been out there laboring and planting rose bushes and cleaning out flower beds and fixing things up and making it more ours, right? And making a house a home. Now, that's what it means to what he's talking about here, finding this house or findeth a home. It's talking about finding rest, settling in and settling down. They don't do that. Their mentality is, this isn't good enough, I need bigger and better. Where I'm at is not sufficient, I need to go to the next town. And their eyes were always full of appetite for the next big thing. And so when he uses this phrase, he's basically saying this: there's no satisfying about the stuff that they gain. They always want more. Bigger, better, the next thing. He then talks about that they have enlarged desires. This is ultimately, I think, the greatest condemnation in this woe. In verse number 6, where he talks about that they keep wanting more and more and more, and it's like they want bigger and bigger pieces. They had a desire that could not be satisfied. They wanted more and more nations to be heaped upon them, and that's actually how he even describes them. The people would be gathered, and the nations would be heaped. They want to collect them like trophies. There's two examples that are given here, hell and death. Now, the idea of him using the idea of hell and death, that they're consuming like hell and they're devouring like death and they're never satisfied, is this: hell has no maximum occupancy. Actually, in the Psalms, it would describe it this way, that hell hath enlarged herself. It's kind of the idea that there is a design by God in hell, that it's not like, oh, we've reached our limit. And death, there's not a max occupancy in death either. Well, we've had so many people die, now you're just going to be excused from death. No, there's not a maximum occupancy. There will be all that will incur death. This is really described in Proverbs 27:20. In Proverbs 27:20 it says this: hell and destruction are never full. So the eyes of man are never satisfied. That's the exact idea that's being presented here in Habakkuk. Hell is never full. You add it, it's like there's no increase. In the same way, the eyes of man, the heart of man that's given over to this appetite is never satisfied. They take a nation, and it's like the nation was never added to them. They just want another and another and another. And they're never satisfied. There's no maximum occupancy. They never had satisfaction. This led them to have a very aggressive attitude. Their heart was this: I don't care who we hurt. I don't care who we step over. I don't care what it costs you. I want what I want. That was Babylon's mentality. And if they had to extort or steal or be hyper-aggressive, they were going to get what they wanted. I don't care who I have to step on. God said that type of attitude stinks in His nostrils. No, don't miss this. That attitude, because I think there may be people even here tonight who maybe can't act like Babylon did, but you've got the heart like Babylon had. The heart that says, I don't care if I hurt somebody as long as I get what I want. I don't care who I have to steamroll as long as I'm promoted. Now, you might not have all the tools and trades and ability that Babylon had, but the heart's there. I tell you what, that attitude, it stinks in the nostrils of God. It's so contrary to the spirit and attributes of our Lord Jesus Christ, who instead of thinking of Himself, made Himself of no reputation and put others before Himself. That's contrary to this attitude, is it not? So here's what God says He's going to do. We'll do a quick work of this. He's going to judge them. Verse 7 and 8, He tells us how He's going to judge them. He says they're going to become like a parable or a proverb. Now, a parable and a proverb are basically this. They're short stories or short phrases that are kind of used to jab at people. Short little bywords, short little stories. So you say, well, are they jabbing at people? Yeah, because he says the proverbs are going to be taunting. I don't know if you've ever been around a kid that's taunting. You just want to, yeah. Anyways. Right? Little taunting kid who just comes around the corner and he's like, "Yeah." He's just being obnoxious. He's taunting you, right? Kind of like the kid that goes to the zoo and he's like, "You can't get me." And you just want one of these times for that animal to get out and actually start chasing him. Okay? The taunting, okay, that's how he says these proverbs and these parables are going to be given, and they're given from the nations that were oppressed by Babylon. So basically it's this: Babylon's been oppressing all these nations, but God's going to remove that oppression, and then all of those nations are going to have some pretty nasty things to say about Babylon. Let me say this: you may steamroll a lot of people in your ambition for success and for promotion, but the more people you steamroll, the more enemies you're going to make. And the more people that are going to have some nasty things to say about you. And he says here there's going to be these taunting proverbs. He actually describes it there. It's going to be to him that ladeth himself with clay. That's maybe not a phrase that we would be used to, but the lading with clay is kind of the idea of somebody who's like, "Oh, you have something I want, let me have that." And they're just lading themselves with clay until they bury themselves. And it's just one of the bywords that they're going to use. They're going to be like, "Yeah, see, he was so hungry for more, he buried himself." It's like a proverb that they would use. Some of the other commentators that talked about this, talked about some of the bywords that might be used. "He who towered so high, behold how low he is fallen. He made himself a god. Behold, he herds with the beast of the field. The disturber of the peace of the world is now a handful of dust." These would maybe be some words that would be used to describe Babylon after this took place. Now, of course, this is all in direction to the unjust behavior, the unjust gains that Babylon has had. So then he says this: Babylon is going to be spoiled. They've been extorting and stealing, and one day God's going to remove that, and then people are going to spoil the Babylonians. They're going to steal all their stuff. Now, without getting into a lot of detail, there's two words that he uses here. He says he's going to bite them and he's going to vex them. This is talking about how fast and how completely they're going to be robbed. Those who have been robbing from everyone else in very, very swift nature, they're going to have all their stuff taken. Well, if you know the history of Babylon, you know how they're taken over. The Medes and the Persians diverted the Euphrates River that ran through the capital there of the Babylonians, and in their drunken stupor of a party, without almost any casualties, they went through the bottom of this massive wall they had there in the city of Babylon, and they went in and conquered the nation in one night. Now, there's some things that led up to that, some skirmishes and battles and things, but ultimately what should have taken years to defeat the Babylonian Empire was accomplished swiftly. God said, "Ooh, this is going to happen," and it did. There was judgment that was there. He actually describes it this way: he's going to take their booty. Now, this is a term we go, "I don't use that all the time." But, you know, if you think about a pirate, same use of the word. Okay, he talks about their booties here. You know, you have a pirate, "I'm going to get my booty." He's talking about his treasure. That's what the word means here, okay? So when he's talking about this of the booties that are going to be taken, he's talking about this amassing of not just a small amount of wealth, large wealth. That's why the word booties is used there, is because it's talking about not a small treasure, a large amassing of treasure. So he's talking about when the Babylonians are spoiled, they have this booties, they'll become booties to the nation that is taking it from them. They'll be stolen from them. They'll fall completely and they will fall quickly. Now, let me make a couple points of application and we're done. First one is this: woe to those who would extort. If you have a dog-eat-dog mentality, the big man wins, I'm going to stomp on whoever I'm going to stomp on in order to get to the top, that is not a condoned attitude from God. Which means this: woe. Pronouncing of warning. Hey, don't do that. Hey, you're going to be in trouble if you continue down that path. Hey, you're going to make some enemies along the way that are going to have some pretty nasty things to say about you if that's how you're going to conduct business. If that's how you're going to run your life, there will be judgment from God. So I say this: woe. Be mindful. Don't extort. Don't be of the mentality of the dog-eat-dog world. No, be humble and lowly like Christ was, preferring others before yourself. The other point of application is this. You ever been taken advantage of before? That doesn't feel good. Somebody steals from you. Somebody takes advantage of you. Somebody steals credit that was yours. You've been extorted in some way. Theft has happened. Somebody's taken it aggressively, and their attitude was, I don't care if it hurt you, I got what I wanted. Well, here's the thing that can be comforting. God knows how to judge those who extort. And He has pronounced woe on those who will conduct themselves in that way. So here's the thing. I'd rather pillow my head at night knowing that I did things right, and I had the right attitude and the right actions, than try to justify myself and say, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. That's not how that verse goes. It's vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. He is the one who gets to have the vengeance. You ever read through the book of 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, and read about David and how he acts with Saul, and you go, just kill him. Just kill him. David says, I'm not going to touch the Lord's anointed. There's a wonderful book called Tale of Three Kings by Gene Edwards. It's a great read. And it talks about the difference of how David handled with Saul and how Absalom handled David wrong. Of how we can handle people that are in authority the wrong way. Now listen, maybe it is in your situation in your life, there's somebody who's extorting or taking advantage. And sometimes the best thing to do is to plead unto the Lord and say, God, I know this isn't correct behavior. This isn't right. And I don't really know how to handle this or what to do. But I do know this. Vengeance belongs to you. And I'm asking you, in your timing and according to your will you accomplish your purpose in judging this wrong that's being done? And here's the blessing. God will judge. It might not be according to our timing or our thinking, but God has pronounced woe upon those who will extort. So let's all stand together as we come to a time of invitation. Father, thank you for your word. We ask that you'll bless it. Lord, I pray maybe in two ways here tonight. Those who have been convicted because of their behavior or their attitude has been like Babylon's. Lord, may they repent and get right tonight. Lord, maybe there are those who have been wronged against. Lord, may they take comfort in knowing that if they have been extorted, God will right this wrong according to His timing. And so, Father, I pray that you'll bless now, give us grace and help. It's in your name we do pray. As the music plays, the Lord spoken to your heart here tonight, won't you come?
Have thine own way, Lord. Have thine own way. And thou art the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me after thy will, while I am waiting, yielded and still. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Search me and try me, Master, today. Whiter than snow, Lord, wash me just now, as in thy presence humbly I bow.
Well, amen. I appreciate your attention to the word. Youth, you can be dismissed to have your prayer time. Everyone's going to be seated as we go to our prayer time here. A great thing to do in your prayer time is to ask the Lord, God, search me and try me. Am I allowing those attitudes